From Raspberry Pi to the cloud, distributed web archiving with Webrecorder tools. And I want to talk about the open source tools in the Webrecorder ecosystem that have been used by the Sucho community in order to be able to archive quickly different sites that have been submitted for archiving as part of saving Ukrainian cultural heritage online. Really the goal of the Webrecorder project is to be able to support such community efforts, and we have a variety of tools that can be used for this purpose. And the sort of 5 tools that are being used are BrowsersCloud, Archive Webpage, and BrowsersCloud for capture, both automated and manual. Then we have Replay Webpage for the replay, and of course the WAXI format as the portable storage format. And now I'll talk about each of these in more detail. BrowsersCloud is our core browser-based crawling system. It's a command line tool aimed at users that are proficient with the command line and able to run a crawl and install Docker. It's fairly flexible. It can be scaled to as many crawl workers as your CPU and memory allows. There's a YAML configuration format, and crawls can be interrupted and restarted, and it can produce WAXI files at the end of each crawl. There's some current documentation for it, but what was really great to see is that Sucho volunteers created additional documentation that made BrowsersCloud more accessible to new users. And there's a tutorial for Sucho on how to get started with BrowsersCloud. There is actually also a GitHub repository of sample crawl configurations, and there's even a tutorial for running BrowsersCloud on a Raspberry Pi. And so how is BrowsersCloud used by Sucho? So there's a Google Sheets spreadsheet where URLs were submitted. There's a special BrowserStrix tab that contains URLs that should be run through BrowserScrawler, and volunteers would take URLs from this spreadsheet, and they would run crawls using the recommended configuration from the Sucho BrowserStrix documentation. During this process, volunteers have encountered some issues, such as crawls that were too big. They've encountered crawler traps and occasional rate limiting as well with some of the larger crawls. Volunteers also learned about scoping rules and exclusion rules and how to adjust them. One feature of BrowsersCloud is that crawls can actually be paused, scoping rules can be adjusted, and then the crawl can be resumed. And went through several iterations of development to make that process more smooth, to allow adjusting scoping rules essentially on the fly and continuing the crawls. And for many volunteers, BrowsersCloud was the first introduction to web archiving, which is really great to see. And also, where has BrowsersCloud been deployed? Well, at least to date, we know that volunteers have run it on a Raspberry Pi, which was previously untested by me at least. They've also run it on Windows, which I also haven't tested before. They've run it on home and work laptops, as well as dedicated cloud servers on DigitalOcean, Hetzner, AWS, and so forth. So anywhere from Raspberry Pi to a dedicated cloud server with 16 and 32 CPUs have been used for BrowsersCloud. Another tool that was used is the Archive Webpage extension, also called by the community manual Webrecorder approach. And the idea with Archive Webpage is that it's a browser extension that allows user-directed recording through a Chromium-based browser. It is great for smaller but highly complex sites that require user interaction, since you're manually browsing all of the pages that are being archived. And the way this worked is sites that are not a good fit for automated crawling were triaged to the manual Webrecorder spreadsheet, and then other volunteers would pick URLs from that sheet and browse with the Archive Webpage extension running. When done, the Archive Webpage extension also offers a WAXI file for download. This approach is accessible for anyone, since it just requires a browser and a browser extension. And the community also produced documentation on how to get started with the Archive Webpage extension, linked here. And this was especially useful for many sites that have museum virtual tours, which can't easily be crawled, such as this example here. which require a user to walk through a particular site and then record that as they're interacting with the site. And now I'd like to talk briefly about the WAXI format, which is sort of the key storage format that's used by Webrecorder tools in this ecosystem. It provides a portable open data package for web archives containing works, indices, as well as associated metadata, including pages, provenance information, and signature data. The tools used by Sucho volunteers, the capture tools, BrowsersCloud, Cloud, and Archive Webpage all can produce a consistent output in the WAXI format. And we've actually encountered WAXI files of various sizes. The WAXI file could be as small as a single page, or it could be a full crawl. And I think the largest was about 1.3 terabytes, which was definitely exceeded what I was expecting would be possible with the format. A key property of WAXI is that it supports random access to individual URLs without downloading the whole file. And this also means that WAXI files that are uploaded to S3 can be instantly accessible for replay using tools like Replay Webpage. And thanks to our Sucho sysadmin, Sebastian, volunteers had several ways of uploading their WAXI files. There's a Google form, as well as the ability to get credentials and upload directly to S3. And I think to date, there are over 20 terabytes of WAXI files in the Sucho S3 bucket, possibly even more. And now that gets us to replaying web archives. And Replay Webpage is the component that provides an in-browser viewer similar to a video player or a PDF viewer for web archives. And it works with the WAXI format, as well as also with works, to be able to essentially replay the WAXI file or the work directly in the browser. And already uploaded URLs can be, or already uploaded WAXI files can be loaded in Replay Webpage by simply entering the URL, or users can load their local WAXI files from disk simply by also choosing the file from replayweb.page. Replay Webpage essentially provides a way to view web archives directly from storage, requiring no additional infrastructure beyond the storage itself, and can also act as an embedded viewer as well. Here's a link to one of our larger WAXI files from a large crawl that is loadable directly from files.sucho.org, so you could download the WAXI file, or you could load it in Replay Webpage, which also downloads the WAXI file, but with random access and on demand. So the initial page loading should be fairly quick, despite the fact that this is a 1 terabyte size WAXI file. And finally, I wanted to talk about BrowsersCloud, which is a integrated UI and hosted application for managing browser-based crawling. It is an all-in-one system that can run a crawl browser's crawler, provide replay via Replay Webpage, and also has automatic upload of WAXI files to S3. It can be deployed on Kubernetes or Docker, so it's not necessarily to run it in the cloud, despite the name. It could also be run locally. And for Sucho, it's been hosted by Webrecorder on AWS, thanks to some credits that we got from AWS. And we're currently optimizing the crawling and storage costs to keep those as low as possible as well, so that we don't use up all the credits. It's still in alpha development stage, but we're hoping to have kind of a beta of it later in the year. Of course, this development is also supported by Iipc as part of the browser-based crawling project. It's fully open source, of course, and you can access it on GitHub and try it on your own. And there's more info on BrowsersCloud. And I'll also do a quick demo shortly. Last thing I wanted to mention is that perhaps Sucho is a really great model for community-driven web archiving. And I think this worked really well, perhaps better than I've seen before anywhere, where there was sort of centralized communication via Slack, URL nomination via Google Sheets, and storage on Amazon S3. So these things were all centralized. And then what was decentralized is the tools. So we have the open source tools that Webrecorder provided that allows volunteers to run crawls and create web archives on their own using the variety of tools that we have: Browsers Crawler, Archive Webpage, and then on their own to upload the data, the archives, back to the centralized storage. There were a variety of tools and tasks for volunteers of different skill levels, so those who are comfortable using the command line could use Browsers Crawler. Those that needed a UI-based tools had Archive Webpage and BrowsersCloud. And of course, there was also volunteers that have contributed to documentation and helped answer questions and helped provide additional help to other volunteers, which was really great to see. Also, all of the Web Archive data is publicly available on S3. It's not tied to any single institution. It can easily be replicated and copied, and really is a public data set at this point. And we had multiple tools for redundant archiving approaches. So even in addition to Webrecorder tools, volunteers were also submitting data to Internet Archive through their Save Page Now service. So there were different approaches that were taken. And finally, I'd like to do a quick demo of the BrowsersCloud system. So I have a demo account here, and I'm going to go ahead. So I'm already logged in, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new crawl template here. So this is kind of the basic UI. So I'll just call this crawl config demo. Here I can enter URLs. I can enter seeds and choose a scope type. I could also do a more advanced configuration, so all the Browsers Crawler YAML config options are available here. But for now, I'll just enter a single seed URL. I can also schedule the crawl, and for now, I'll just do run immediately. As soon as I click save and create this crawl template, the crawl should be starting, here we are. We skipped ahead for the crawl to start, so we have everything's tracked in pages. So already it's discovered and crawled this many pages. You can actually view the crawl as it's running, and so it's playing YouTube videos and archiving them. And so we have at this point this many pages, this many crawled. So this is actually a fairly small site, so it should finish fairly quickly. As you can see, there are 4 browser crawl workers running. This can be configured as well in the settings. Most of these pages are fairly static, but those that do contain YouTube videos on those pages, the videos are played and captured. Yeah, it looks like the crawl is finished at 59 pages. And so now it's actually uploading, it's creating the WAXI file and uploading it to S3. And as soon as it does that, the crawl preview turns into an embedded replay webpage viewer. So this is just plain replay webpage loaded as an embed. And here we can watch or browse the archive directly. So we can actually see that there are, so there's a YouTube video, and the YouTube video plays directly in the page. Yeah, and we can, for example, go to other pages and so forth. From the download page, we can download the link. It links directly to the S3 bucket for a download. Yeah, and so that's a very quick demo of BrowsersCloud, and happy to answer any questions about all of this in the Q&A. Thank you.